edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Piper Gibson, triple board certified children's holistic health expert and author. Welcome to the show, Dr. Piper.
Thank you, AJ. Thank you for having me this morning.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. And I'm sure a lot of people across the globe, will benefit from what we'll be talking about. We're talking about healthy habits for the family, from movement to nutrition. So, Dr. Piper, to understand from it, just like help us understand what we are not doing so good as a family in terms of movement, in terms of nutrition, and then we'll see the good part of it. So let's understand it from you are a triple board certified children's holistic health expert. You know about children very well, but here we'll add the other members of the family. Help us, understand from that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we live in a time period of we want instant gratification. We want everything to be easy. Everything is at our fingertips. And honestly, that has really changed our health. And it's really especially changed our children's health, because for a lot of us, we didn't grow up this way. We didn't have the fun at our fingertips. And so we were outside playing and doing all of the things. And so I think that with the fact that we are just this society of instant gratification, that our children are starting to struggle in both the movement area and the nutrition area. So when we're looking at movement, our kids sit in a classroom all day for most cases. They are not getting a lot of physical exercise. I know some of the schools here just got rid of a couple of days of the PE classes, and they come home and they are exercising their thumbs. They're not getting up, running around, doing the athletics. So movement is extremely important for everybody. It helps us to make neurotransmitters. It helps us with our digestion. We get outside in the sunlight and it helps our circadian rhythm, so we sleep better. But, we're seeing this lack of movement in society, but we're also seeing this instant gratification nutrition. Let's go through the drive-through. Let's throw on the, instant rice in the bag that's already pre-made. And so we're eating a lot of processed, boxed, bar-coded, bottled foods that really lack the nutrition that kids need. And so as families, our kids see us as parents with these habits, not moving, exercising our thumbs, and not eating right. And so we are really starting to see this younger generation start to struggle with their health and wellness.
Right. So what is the course correction here? How do you do that with the habit? What do you do with the habit that has ingrained so much into our lives? Forget about the children, even parents. If they are the ones who children see, but parents, how do they do that course correction? Can we suddenly change our habits, change the way we have been living, and suddenly the children find, that, okay, everything is so nice. Now let's follow the new habit. How to get started, because it is high time we get started with the good habits. And if you don't do it, then the doctors will force you to do it, whether you do it or not, but situations can force you to do it. That's the way we are going. We, as I say, if children must know that, hot dogs will not make them the top dog in life. They need to get something much more healthier. Help us understand how to get started.
Yeah, I love that. The hot dogs are not going to make you the top dog in life. That is a fantastic quote. It's really, as parents and working with families, I have noticed that a lot of parents see things as overwhelming. When we start to talk about diet changes or adding in new habits, it's overwhelming. And what I really express to them is, there's a saying that's, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't sit down and eat a whole elephant in one serving. And so, yes, this is the elephant. We have to start to make these little habit changes. So for you, for your family, it may be picking out one or two things that are going to be really important to help you get started. So, hey, our goal for a month is to stop eating all of the packaged sugary junk food. And we're going to go for a walk every day after dinner for 30 days. 2 simple steps that you can start immediately. And, walking is cheap, easy, free. So looking at things you can do with your kids, can you, have them ride their bike or roller skate, or what can you do as a family? Once you've nailed those first couple of habits, it's going to be a lot easier to then select a couple more things that you can add to your list to really start to make those changes. Over time, as you begin to stick with those few habits, they will start to grow. You will at some point have eaten the whole elephant.
Right, right. Now, a lot of people, especially, I have seen there is a culture of going to the gym, which is good, fine, nothing wrong with that. But when you talk of lack of movement, suddenly they talk about more movement and talk about gym.
Mhm.
Now, from no movement to gym is a huge jump, and that is a mental block in some way. How do you convince them that, listen, the gym can wait? You first start with the movement, start with a simple walk. How do you build that culture of just walking? Yeah, for a lot of people who just think, okay, if I have to exercise, it has to be in full force.
Yeah, well, the best way is to get a dog because they're going to want to go for a walk every day. So there's one step for you. But really, it's a matter of so many people talk about motivation. And I look at movement and exercise less in the perspective of motivation and more in the perspective of habit. You get up every morning, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair, you're doing these same things that you've done every day for the past 40 years or whatever the time may be. And you have to look at movement and exercise in very much the same way. It's not, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Well, I don't feel like brushing my teeth, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's really a matter of making it that habit. Get your shoes, put them by your bed. When you roll out of bed in the morning, put your shoes on. Okay, I'm going to go for my walk, even if it's a 5-minute walk. Make your goal the next day a 10-minute walk and the next day a 15-minute walk, if walking is what you choose. And so it's really about making these small changes that you can build on over time.
Right. Dr. Piper, I was trying to understand in the US, especially, in the Western world, there is a lot of awareness. Awareness, there is a lot of education also. People know about these things. But why is it that this education is missing? And who is responsible for such awareness among families, among kids? Don't they emphasize these things in schools? Don't families know about it, or there are institutes or agencies whose job is to educate the mass population about these things? Why is all propaganda about marketing? Why is it not about the real things? Where is the problem? And where, as a doctor, where can the right sort of messaging come from the people who are also in government, in other institutes, who can bring about this strong messaging, so that as a society everybody gets focused on a thing like this? Because this whole weight issues, health issues, I think it is getting bigger and bigger globally. Forget about climate change, that is a big issue, but what about this change that is immediately required? Because the health issues are rising. I see a lot of this also happening in this part of the world, and that is where more younger and younger people are falling prey to illnesses, which were perhaps people used to think they would only come into your life maybe after 50s. How does this work? Because this change has to start from the ground, and from the top, and there has to be a lot of education needed in this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to it's easier to have that instant gratification. Hey, there's a quick fix. So in the United States, we see a lot of drug commercials, and people are like, oh, well, I'll just take that drug. Forget eating right. We'll just take a medication for it. And that's not all of it. A lot of it has to do with the way that people are trained here. A lot of the medical schools, they're trained for acute care. They're not trained for chronic care. And a lot of the things that we are seeing are these chronic issues. And so when we start to look at, how much nutrition is taught in medical school, there are a lot of physicians who are getting less than an hour or 1 hour, 60 minutes of nutrition training. So I feel that it's very, very lacking when you take your child to the physician or you take yourself to the physician. The comment, especially when my son was really ill, was food doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he's eating. And we know now how much the food he was eating was impacting his health. And so I think it really comes down to a lot of the education piece and the way that we are educating those that need to be teaching these things. And There's a theory here called translational medicine, meaning it takes about 30 years for what we're seeing now to actually be taught in medical school. So if we're seeing this 30-year lag, we know these things, but it's going to be 30 years from now before these things are, one, being taught in medical school, but two, being passed on to the patient. So it's really about becoming more proactive as a society. And when we can take these things with family, instead of going out the door to your physician or to, your school or wherever you're going and relying on someone else for that education piece, I feel like it starts with the family. You need to be aware as a parent how important the movement and nutrition is for your child, so that you can then start instilling those habits in them when they're young.
Okay, okay. You talked about, advertisement for drugs. You mean in India, if you ask me, we have this whole concept of only, if I understand, is the OTC drugs. Over the counter medicines can be, talked about, but not any other, especially scheduled H drugs, which they call you can't talk about. Can they talk about that in the US very openly?
We are one of two countries, I believe Australia is the other one, who allows advertisements for prescription medications on television. And so they are on constantly. If you're watching a regular cable TV show, there's going to be about 50 prescription drug advertisements during that show. And so people see this, and these advertisements are designed to look happy and everybody's having a good time. And, oh, I'm going to take that medication because it's just going to make me feel so much better. And so we have a society of individuals, especially here in the United States, who are going to their physicians and saying, hey, I saw this medication on TV. Can you prescribe it for me? So there's a big difference in other countries where those medications, the doctors know what they're going to prescribe, and they're going to prescribe them when their patients come in with those symptoms. But in the United States, we are bombarded with these ads for, hey, take this medication. It's a great Band-Aid.
Right, right. And are people not raising their voice against this? I don't say whether it is good or bad, but children especially, will get a different sort of a messaging. They are also watching the same stuff in the family, and it might lead to a lot of, misinformation or misunderstanding about the whole issue that they are trying to talk about. I'm just trying to get a sense for the Indian audience or for anywhere else. As you said, it is only in two countries, perhaps. One is the US and one is another, perhaps Australia, that this is there. Means it is such a different position, and I am trying to still understand it, that how would I see when somebody is advertising a drug which is, which can be only prescribed by a competent doctor.
So one of the things that I have noticed in the past few years is that we are actually starting to focus more on giving medications to kids. Why? Because it sets them up for life. So instead of teaching them the habits of good nutrition so that they can focus and function in school, and teaching them the habits of moving and enjoying their life, we are a lot of times prescribing a medication. It sets them up at a very young age to then have the idea that they are going to take this with them throughout their life, and that, forget trying to figure out what's really going on. Why are you having these symptoms? It's, we're going to take this medication. And I am not anti-medication at all. There are time and place when people are going to need their medications. You have a heart attack, you break an arm, you need to go see, your physician or go to the emergency room. But it's really about the issue is, why is there so much chronic illness, and how do we re-educate the population so that we don't continue down this road of a nation and a society of sick people?
Right, right. Be that as it may, I'm sure a lot of people are getting aware. A lot of young generation will perhaps get a better understanding of this, and they will discuss it within themselves, that what is the type of organizations that they want to deal with it, and then force them to actually look at things much more differently, much more from the right way. But let's talk about gut health. Where does people say that it all begins with the food, it all begins from the stomach. How can the family look at this part so that they don't have to look at any of those things that they advertise about, and then it becomes. And second part is the mental health, because there is a phone in everyone's hand, and the first thing is that they get to. And the last thing also of the day is the mobile phone. How does what would you advise as a doctor that people take care of in terms of either again the food part and here the mental health part with regards to the gadgets that we do that we use day in and day out?
Yeah. So one is when we look at mental health and gut health, they are connected. The gut and brain are connected. And there's an interesting study that really kind of links for every one signal your brain sends to your gut sends about 10 signals to your brain. So your gut is really bossy. So when you maybe are craving that sugar, you think, well, what's going on in my gut? And a lot of the fungus and bacteria in the gut actually thrive on sugar. That's what they're thriving on. So the fact that you're craving that is a real sign that maybe your gut health maybe is a little bit off. And so we do have to look at gut health as an important aspect for mental health. And we have to look at, we know that an anti-inflammatory diet, rich in wild caught fish and fruits and vegetables and game meat and pastured chicken is really going to be one of the best ways that we can support our gut health so that we can then have better mental health. Something we see here is that everybody loves cereal. In the United States, everybody's having cereal for breakfast. Well, they're missing out on that important protein that they need so that they can in turn make the neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine so that they can function and focus at school. So we have this whole society of kids at school who can't focus. And some of that is what they're eating for breakfast. So we have to look at how the gut and the brain are connected. But because we all sit around, exercise our thumbs all day, that blue light, that screen that we look at all day mimics the sun. And so if we're laying in bed at night and we're watching our screen, that is going to impact our sleep. We are not going to get this great sleep that we need so that we can rest and recover, which is really the important part of sleep. So looking at, having that time when you're going to put that phone down. Well, I'm going to put my phone down at 7. I'm not going to look at it again the rest of the night. It impacts my sleep. But also you can use that time to spend with your family, play a game, do, a board game, do something together that really starts to enrich the family and helps the family to grow as a whole together. So, when I look at things from the holistic perspective, it's how the body is connected, but not just everything in our body, but how we are connected to our environment as well.
Right, doctor. There is much to learn about all these things, and I think it's more about the basics, which doctors like you will certainly. You are talking on this podcast. You'll talk to more and more people, and this is how I guess more and more awareness will spread to more families, more children, till that way it will be a happy world once again. Be that as it may, help us understand about this TikTok. It's you have a book also about you. You are the founder of the Tic Disorder Institute also. Help us understand what is this TikTok about and not that TikTok.
Not that TikTok. This TikTok.
Right.
So
can you hold the book well for the people to see it? Yes, but it is covering your face.
That better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is better. Thank you.
So my son was diagnosed with a transient neurological tic 12 years ago. A tic is, you might be familiar with Tourette syndrome. So tics are the precursor to Tourette syndrome. And when he was diagnosed, we went through the ringer, and the conventional approach really failed us. We were told diet didn't matter. We had a neurologist tell us that he just needed a good spanking. We were told ignore his symptoms, maybe he'll grow out of it. And I knew looking at him that there was something going on in his body. He was struggling. He was not just making these uncontrollable movements for no reason. It was like his smoke alarm was going off. Help me, something's happening. And so I, at that point, decided to go back to school and relearn everything I thought I knew about health and wellness. And so now I'm, a doctor of functional medicine. I have a PhD. I am a genomics specialist. And I wrote this book because I wanted parents to have a new perspective on what tic disorders really mean. Conventional approaches really look at them as purely neurological. And I am here to tell you, tic disorders are not purely neurological. Our gut, our brain, our environment, our body, we are connected. And so I wanted to write this book so that parents like me who were out there struggling and watching their kids suffer had a different perspective and a new approach to really help them figure out what was going on with their children.
Right, right. There is so much to learn, doctor, and I'm sure this one episode is not enough. There are a lot of people who would want to know more about you, about what you do, about what are the resources that make available for them, and also about your book and what's the best way for them to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's www.regenerating.health. I also have a private Facebook group called Tic Disorder Secrets, a natural approach that's open to the public. Everyone can, join it. But it is members of the group only. So those are the best ways to find me. I'm also on Instagram at Regenerating Health. I'm on YouTube at Dr. Piper Regenerating Health. So lots of places people can find me and get more information on what we're doing and how we work with clients all over the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. All I can say is that it is time that we move away from a bit from that TikTok to this TikTok to family health and all the important things related to what are actually important. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.